It's an issue dominating the headlines and dividing the nation: immigration. So how did we get here? And what can be done about it? We've asked our Martha Teichner to take a closer look.
Look at just about any of these people, any mother carrying a child, and you can be pretty sure they've walked the length of whole countries. Along the southern U.S. border, where the razor wire meets the river, a humanitarian catastrophe meets an immigration enforcement horror show, Tinder and Spark, which have ignited what is now the nation's #1 political firefight.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly.
The latest flashpoint over that proposed bipartisan border deal, likely DOA after former President and candidate Donald Trump weighed in.
There is zero chance I will support this horrible open borders betrayal of America.
Meanwhile, the migrants keep coming. Last year, the United States spent more than $36 billion on immigration enforcement, more than for all other federal law enforcement combined. Since the Biden administration took office in 2021, there have been at least 6.3 million migrant encounters at U.S. borders. 2.4 million of those people have been let in, mainly asylum seekers, apprehended, then turned loose to wait for their court dates, and eligible for work permits after 6 months. A big incentive to come.
Until your case is decided, it will be a very long time, and that does function as a pull factor, yes. We're talking about anywhere from 4 to 6, 7, sometimes more years than that.
Doris Meissner was commissioner of the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service during the Clinton administration and is now a senior fellow at the nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute in Washington, D.C.
What the data show us are that if you are in the country for more than a year, it's highly unlikely that you'll be returned, even when your case is turned down, if it's turned down.
You'll remain here in a long-term limbo. The immigration court backlog is currently 3.3 million, a third of them asylum seekers. Of the asylum cases decided last year, more than 8 out of 10 were denials. Why don't they do it legally?
There is no line to get into to do it legally. We bring 1 million or more people into the country every year. 2/3 of those people have a relative in the United States.
We as a nation are forcing people to show up at the border, get apprehended, and apply for asylum.
You could certainly state it that way.
What have we got? A giant, messy catch-22, thanks to an outdated and politicized immigration system.
We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
The accusation that what candidate Joe Biden said in 2019 was a big green light for migrants.
What if I told you not everybody wants to solve the problem? What if I told you it is very lucrative, both financially now, but also politically for so many people to be in this quagmire, to see these images?
Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez, a Republican, represents the epicenter of the migrant crisis, Eagle Pass.
How can we just stop? My community needs help, immediate help.
Show me your district.
The 823 miles along the border, here's Eagle Pass, right in here is Eagle Pass.
Where that ugly showdown is still playing out over who controls the border, Texas or the federal government. And speaking of political theater, by busing tens of thousands of migrants to already overwhelmed big cities with Democratic mayors, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has riled the likes of New York's Eric Adams.
This issue will destroy New York City.
Do you stand by that?
Without a doubt. Here in the city, 169,000. They cannot work to provide themselves. We have to provide food, shelter, clothing, cleaning, education, health care. That comes with a serious price tag, $12 billion over 3 years that's coming out of our city coffers. We're better than this, America.
How much milk do you produce a day?
Around 90,000 pounds, which
A
is
day.
a day,
Wow.
which is 45 tons of milk.
At Walter Moore's dairy farm in southern Pennsylvania, 2.5 hours from New York City's migrant mess, you can see a whole different side of the crisis. Mariachi music to milk buy. Brian and his dad Alejandro are here from Mexico legally. The dairy industry would have trouble surviving without immigrant labor. But Walter Moore, a leader in the field, has described the labor shortage as severe. The reason? Only seasonal farm workers can get visas. Dairy farming is year-round, 24/7. Moore says, change the law so badly needed migrants are allowed into the United States to do the work. Do you know farmers who have left the dairy industry because they couldn't find the workers that they need?
Yes. You know, honestly, we've been talking about this for 15 or 20 years.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happens.
You always have to look at where the political incentives lie.
Jay Johnson was Homeland Security Secretary, responsible for U.S. borders, in 2013, the last time bipartisan immigration reform legislation came close to passing, but then failed.
And ever since then, any effort to compromise has been deemed weak, has been deemed a political liability.
We asked Johnson about a fix.
There's a lot you can do to surge resources which solves the problem in the immediate term, in the short term. But so long as families are so desperate to flee violence, poverty, corruption, they're going to keep coming. You've also got to continually send the message that if you come here, we will send you back.
His solution? Very similar to the framework of the bipartisan border deal.
Address the things that serve as magnets in our immigration system. Address the backlog. Address the standards by which someone can qualify on the front end for asylum and then go into that multi-year waiting period to see whether or not they ultimately get it. More immigration judges, more asylum officers, more technology, more Border Patrol agents, all of those things, but always with a view toward what our values are as Americans. We are a nation of immigrants.
We spoke to Johnson at Ellis Island, the very symbol of our immigrant heritage. Between 1892 and 1924, 12 million passed through its Great Hall. The space is being compared to the Roosevelt Hotel, where migrants are processed now in New York City. A lobby full of stories of how and why. But here, only one goal.
Under the dictatorship, it was impossible to live in Venezuela.
Meet Daniel, 24, a construction worker back in Venezuela.
He was earning $10 a month, max.
A month?
A month.
He tried several times to cross the border before finally making it in December.
He understands very well that for his economic conditions, they don't provide asylum. So he will look into other alternative methods.
Daniel, like every other migrant in this room, intends to stay, no matter what.
Let's come together, find the practical, pragmatic solutions to controlling our border. It's what the American people want.